honourable members.
The opposition has been demanding a joint parliamentary probe into allegations linked to the Adani group. But the Prime Minister brought down the House with this resounding finish.
देश देख रहा है, एक अकेला कितनों को भारी पड़ रहा है। एक अकेला कितनों को भारी पड़ रहा है। देश के लिए जीता हूँ, देश के लिए कुछ करने के लिए निकला हुआ हूँ। और इसलिए ये राजनीतिक खेल खेलने वाले लोग, उनके अंदर वो हौसला नहीं है। वो ढूंढ रहे हैं, बचने का रास्ता खोज रहे हैं।
So has the Prime Minister set the tone for the 2024 Lok Sabha elections?
All right, let me open this up to our guests. It's a short face-off tonight here on Tacks. Aparajita Sarangi is BJP MP and national spokesperson. Shama Mohammed, Congress Party spokesperson, and Advaita Kala, author and political analyst, joining us. Let me start with Shama Mohammed because both yesterday and today, in response to the Adani allegations, the Prime Minister's manner of response or the way to respond to those allegations seems to be that he is putting this firmly in the court of public opinion and saying, on the issue of corruption, who do you trust? Do you trust me, Modi, or do you trust the Congress Party with its history of UPA scams? That seems to be his response to all the questions that the opposition has put to him and, you know, for the better part of many days now, held the budget session hostage to. Shama Mohammed. Shama Mohammed, can you hear me? All right, I'll go back to Dr. Shama Mohammed in just a moment once her audio line is fixed. But Aparajita Sarangi, is that the strategy that Mr. Modi is now putting this back in the court of public opinion and saying, on corruption, who would you choose? Would you choose me or would you choose the opposition represented by the Congress?
A very good evening. Let's first of all try to understand the background of this entire speech, fiery speech by the Honorable Prime Minister yesterday and today in both houses of the Parliament. We were discussing the presidential address and the motion of thanks had to go on. And at that point of time, Rahul Gandhi in the Lok Sabha talks of a particular person and a particular organization. Now, without any documentary evidence, without any proof, he kept on talking about that organization, and thereafter the entire Congress and of course the other political parties also joined the bandwagon. They all started. Now here is a Prime Minister who actually gave very befitting reply to all these critics. And it would not be an exaggeration if I can say that yesterday and today, after his fiery speech, and a speech filled with content, a speech filled with conviction and a kind of commitment towards the cause of the nation, he has silenced all his critics.
But Aparajita Sarangi, the critics, those critics that you refer to, Aparajita Sarangi, those very same critics that you refer to are saying that in the last two speeches that he made, well over an hour in both houses, he did not refer to the issue at hand even once, the issue that has held Parliament hostage for the better part of the last week, 10 days.
I can only say that unless documentary evidence is given, that particular issue should not be spoken about. One. Number two, please remember 2-3 days back, Madam Nirmala Sitharaman had come out into the open and she had given interviews and she had mentioned that SEBI is the regulator, SEBI is doing its job. And LIC and SBI have come out and have issued separate statements. So I think SEBI is doing the job. SEBI will come out with a comprehensive report and then thereafter what's to be done will be done.
All right.
Now, I can only say that the business community has to grow in the country and various businessmen are growing and it's a good sign for the country.
Let me ask Dr. Shama Mohammed, you may not like the manner of his reply or the way he chose to reply, but this is the Prime Minister telling the people of India, you decide on the issue of corruption, are you going to choose me, Modi, or are you going to choose the UPA with its history of all the scams from 2004 to 2014. And in that count, on this issue, he seems to be directly throwing the gauntlet back at you.
Okay, first a couple of points, Zaka. I've been sitting here for 10 minutes and I've been connected after the show is on. I fail to understand. So
no,
I
came to you first.
I
came to you first. You couldn't hear me.
No, but they did not connect. It's not you.
I apologize for the audio
so it
line.
Doesn't matter.
But go ahead, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, it's okay. Yeah, so a couple of points. Now, the Prime Minister keeps saying about scams from before 2014. Now, I want to know what are these so-called scams. No, you just can't come every time and lie to the people of India. Now, I remember he said helicopter. I know that is Augusta-Westland. What did we do after Augusta-Westland? We stopped the contract immediately. We did a CBI probe was started immediately. And even in Parliament, we said we are ready for a JPC. We never said that. And whenever so-called allegations has happened, the minister, including chief ministers, have stepped down and an impartial investigation happens. That's why we ask them to step down. And whenever we say whatever, the coal scam, so-called coal scam, the 2G, the Supreme Court has clearly said there was no scam. So nobody has been convicted. Let's understand that. Who is the only person who I remember has got convicted in a scam or corruption is Yediyurappa. After being convicted in 2011, he was made the CM by Mr. Modi. Na khaunga, na khane dunga. What has happened there? So let's get the facts right. Now, in terms of this case of Mr. Adani, what I want to point out is in 2019, there was the finance ministry as well as Niti Aayog objected to giving 6 contracts, 6 of the airports to one bidder. They clearly came out and said, even the Department of Economic Affairs says that this should not be done because it is a huge capital investment, it's a financial risk, and also in terms of competition, it is best to give one bidder, just 2 airports. Okay, this is coming from the government of India. But this was overruled. And also they gave an example of GMR, which was during our time when the airport was given to GMR. It was the best bidder in both for Delhi as well as Mumbai. But it was only given Delhi. So this was there. It was there before. So why was this particular person
Shama
given
Mohammed,
all?
can I ask one thing? If you have this information, you can go ahead and challenge this in a court of law. Let the court decide and go into the merits of whether and why these objections were overruled. Your leader, one second. Your leader, when he spoke in Parliament 2 days ago, he made a specific charge that GVK, the company that used to run the Mumbai airport, was pressured to give the contract to the Adani group. Subsequently, the next day, the person in charge of the GVK group of companies came out and said that no such thing happened. In fact, they were looking to sell and they were trying to sell for a number of months. Finally, it was Mr. Adani who showed interest and wrapped up the deal in a month, thereby refuting what your leader said on the floor of the House.
See, everybody lives in fear. I do know many important businessmen, when the shares of the Adani was down, they were called. I'm not going to name who. But the second topmost guy called them up and said, the shares, you must buy it. We know what's happening in this country. So, they can be pressurized to tell these things. We know how it functions. But there are these things which I have told you just now, which has come out. And every time you say challenge in the court of law. So I fail to understand why do we have an executive? Every case when it comes to Rafale, everything go to Supreme Court. So let the Supreme Court be in charge of this country. Why do we need Mr. Narendra Modi?
Okay.
Did he answer anything we have asked him? Every time he has this thing about going back to, I want the BJP
I want to get Advaita Kala to respond.
Which are the so-called scams?
I think Advaita Kala, I think what we are seeing, I think is a trailer, if you will, of what we can expect in 2024. I thought both the speech in the Lok Sabha yesterday and the one in the Rajya Sabha today was setting the stage. It was more election speech than parliamentary speech. It is setting the stage for what could likely be a dominant theme going in the run-up to 2024. The problem, though, is we have seen this script play itself out previously. In 2019, Rahul Gandhi and the Congress party went hammer and tongs on Rafale. But the people of India, for whatever it's, they came to the conclusion or they came to the opinion, the majority opinion, that they don't believe that Mr. Modi is corrupt, or at least the allegations did not stick, which is why he came back with an even bigger majority. Once again, is the opposition making the same mistake? What was Rafale in 2019 could be Adani in 2024, thereby giving Mr. Modi an advantage. You're playing the same script again, giving him an advantage. You have to unmute, Advaita.
Sorry, Zaka, I was on mute. I think the important thing to note here is that even with the Rafale case, it was brought up in Parliament again by Mr. Rahul Gandhi and was debunked by French embassy and French ministry officials to the extent that it could have possibly been a diplomatic episode, because there was an illusion that the French were lying and the French in the highest office of the land were lying. Subsequently, this time around as well, you have the statement about GVK in which Sanjay Reddy, very much the man behind the airport deal, comes out and specifically debunks it and lays out the entire timeline of the transaction in the post-COVID scenario. I'm afraid conjecture cannot be the basis of debate and discussion in Parliament. It can be the basis of debate and discussion on TV or on YouTube or in the newspaper columns, but it cannot be the basis of debate in Parliament. I mean, you have lies being called out in real time by corporate India, like we saw. You have MPs, elected MPs, using abusive language in Parliament. You've had sloganeering while the Prime Minister was speaking right through. Now, look at it from the perspective of just the ordinary Indian who is watching Parliament. Someone like me and millions of others like me do not have access to Parliament. Okay. What we see on TV is what we know and what we experience, and that is what we base our perceptions on. Now, Prime Minister Modi is a masterful orator. He knows that when he speaks, it's not only those heckling parliamentarians who he's addressing, but he's addressing the entire nation. And you're absolutely right. He played to the galley. He took it a step forward. He discussed every single thing that his government has achieved, despite the heckling. And what is the opposition coming back with, apart from abuses? I mean, it's shocking the kind of language that was used in Parliament the other day. And I'm sure, I mean, be it Ms. Sarangi or Shama, I mean, that's not the kind of language we want even from women parliamentarians. I mean, we call it out with men all the time. But that's the kind of environment that existed in Parliament. Are you expecting us to take people like that seriously?
Let me go back to Aparajita Sarangi. What the opposition's point is that, you know, what Shama Mohammed cited about, you know, concerns raised by various ministries. There was also the instance cited today in Parliament about how there was a Sri Lankan official who, quote unquote, told a parliamentary committee there that they were pressured to give a particular project to this business conglomerate. Aren't these questions that deserve a probe, whether JPC or no, aren't these questions that deserve a probe? I mean, it goes back to the Hindenburg report, which seemed to suggest that there were shell companies that were used to round-trip money. Shouldn't that be probed? And if it is false, so be it. I mean, let the truth come out.
I would be reiterating what I said. See, when you level charges against none less other than the Prime Minister of the country, you should have the maturity to come to the Lok Sabha or come to the floor of the Parliament with documentary evidence. There has to be proof. Otherwise, you cannot just speak about the Prime Minister in that particular tone. So I think if there had been proof, it would have been probed. But the fact remains, I reiterate, Madam Nirmala Sitharaman was candid. SEBI as a regulator is probing. It's the job of SEBI. Let SEBI come out with a report, and I think the entire nation would get to know. Now here, I would definitely like to mention that with a very heavy heart we saw the proceedings of the Rajya Sabha today. Yesterday I was sitting in the Lok Sabha, and today on the television we saw the proceedings of the Rajya Sabha. Very rightly said by the speaker, the friend on the panel, that, you know, this is not the kind of behavior that is to be shown when the Prime Minister is talking. See, the Prime Minister is talking on various issues, and here is a Prime Minister who knows that he should give his report card to the people of India, and who feels accountable to the electorate. It's very important on various issues. You heard him. He came up with facts and figures. Here is a Prime Minister who has complete grip over the subject that he's dealing with. Here is a Prime Minister who walks the talk. And then there is a bunch of all these opposition parties who did not, kind of allow him to speak properly. It must have been such a strain for him to speak in the manner he did today.
Okay.
And as far as Congress is concerned, I must say emphatically that they don't have the moral authority to talk about corruption.
The issue comes back to what is the proof of public corruption? The public exposure to Adani, as has been clarified by the CMD of SBI and LIC, is less than 1% each in both of those companies. Do you have any material in your hands which shows that public money was looted in exchange for this one company?
Is that question to me?
Yes, ma'am, to you. Yeah.
Zaka?
Yeah.
Yeah. So a couple of things. First and foremost, I just want to tell that Adwaita said something. She said conjecture. Yeah, conjecture is one thing. What about lies of Prime Minister Modi when he talks of corruption or scams before 2014? He has to stop lying also, isn't it, Adwaita? Why does he keep saying when nothing has been proven, none of our people have been convicted in the Congress party? The only one who has been convicted of corruption is Yediyurappa. So why don't you, Adwaita, say that loud and clear? So we are not. Next, she said about abuse.
Jaka, can I come in, please?
One second, ma'am.
Today, we don't have Sushma Swaraj or Jaitley. Let me finish. Jaitley, they used to call chor to Manmohan Singh inside Parliament. The Prime Minister of the country has said the former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh wears a raincoat under a shower. I mean, is that not insult and abuse? Maybe your insult and abuse is different. For me, this is insult.
No, Shama, can you answer the question that I asked you, please? Can you please answer the question I asked you?
I have to, they were talking about. Now, we have to understand, most important is when there are huge allegations like this. Also in 2019, SEBI, the finance ministry in Parliament had said that there is a investigation because of investigation of the Adani, because they were trying to manipulate stocks. Now, my question today is that why is SEBI not involved when something huge like this? We have seen that why is our regulatory, even in UK, the regulatory body has started investigation. All right. Why is that? Why is it not getting involved? Is one, and number two, why is the government scared of JPC?
You have still not answered my question, which is, please, if you have material to show that public money was plundered or looted, then please place that evidence in the public domain. Secondly, one second. Secondly,
that is not my job.
Secondly, then why are you holding a parliament? If that's not your job, then why are you holding a parliament? Why should the Indian taxpayer, the Indian voter, put up with this circus if you are saying that it is not your job?
So listen, so tell me something. When all these so-called allegations happened during our time, was it the BJP which was doing? It is the investigating agencies at that point of time. And now it's the job of the regulatory, SEBI. And also we're asking for a joint parliamentary committee probe. So why don't you go for a JPC? We are all involved. Their party, our party, everybody is there.
I'll give Adwaita the final word. I have to wrap up in a couple of minutes. Dr. Shama Mohammed, please yield.
I mean, you can't
Adwaita Kala, look, this back and forth, will keep going on and on, even beyond this parliament session. What I do want to know was, I think, in that parting shot that he referred to, the Prime Minister in his Rajya Sabha speech, where he said, "Ek aadmi akela sab par bhari." Is that going to be the positing for 2024? Because it's going to be Modi versus all. And we've seen this even in 2019, when SP and BSP came together in Uttar Pradesh, and other parties came together to take on the BJP. In Maharashtra, we saw, the Shiv Sena, NCP and Congress all coming together to take on the BJP. Somehow, when it is Modi versus all, it's Modi who seems to have the advantage.
That, and I must remind Shama that Rahul Gandhi is out on bail right now in the National Herald case. So, on what basis is he standing in Parliament and accusing other people just on the basis, I repeat, of conjecture and hearsay that the government has been involved or the Prime Minister directly has been involved in some level of corruption? I'm sorry, you have to come up with facts. This defamation has carried on for too long. It's embarrassed the country when it came to Rafale and relationships with France. Today, it's embarrassing the country watching this going on in Parliament. And there's no two ways about it. I think the Prime Minister if there's one thing that's not worked for the opposition in the past, it has been to attack the Prime Minister's personal honesty. That has not flown, be it with the Chaukidar Chor Hai jibe or now with this whole drama over Adani. It's not worked even from an electoral point of view. So I think it's important for them to be realistic about what they face, about the kind of strength that the Prime Minister brings to the electorate, and target him, if they must, on something which is going to fly. In this case, they end up just looking like they're flying kites. Because you're right, you've asked this repeatedly, where is the proof? And that's what the country is going to ask. Where is the proof? Because anyone can say anything about anyone in a free democracy. That doesn't mean it's proof of fact.
I'm going to wrap up because I'm out of time. All I'll say, and I'll wrap up by saying this, that it's no one's case that the regulators should not probe these allegations that have been brought forth, and not least because of the fallout of those allegations. There's 10 lakh crores worth of valuation and investor money that's been wiped out. But that is between the people who invested in this company and that company, right? It is not public money, not more than 1% of LIC's exposure, not more than 1% of SBI's exposure. But public, you go to the man on the street and ask him, is this an issue that affects you? I'm not sure that this is an issue that affects the average man on the street. And ultimately, coming back to the point that I started with, when it comes to the issue of corruption, if the framing in the 2024 campaign is going to be Modi versus UPA, then I think it's a pretty straightforward framing, and it's not something that would be particularly advantageous to the opposition. We'll move on to the other part, which is a massive story coming in from Mumbai. CNN News 18 has managed to access a 600-page chart sheet in the PFI case filed by the Maharashtra Anti-Terrorism Squad. It is an extensive document which lists out in great detail the rather sinister and nefarious nature of this prescribed organization. The most striking part is a document which has been recovered from one of the PFI operatives, allegedly, in which it is said that there is an open declaration to make India an Islamic state by 2047. So this is what CNN News 18 has managed to get a hand on. This is the internal document. It's a chart sheet. Basis that chart sheet, or inside that chart sheet, is an internal document of the PFI which allegedly gives a framework to make India into an Islamic state by 2047. As per the Maharashtra ATS's chart sheet, the PFI has a 4-step program for this. Step 1 is using religious leaders to bring the community under one roof and constantly reminding the community that atrocities are being committed against them here in India. Step 2 is seeking funds from Islamic countries which will then be used by PFI cadre to create violence in the country. Step 3 is use communities like the scheduled castes and the scheduled tribes to create distrust for the RSS and spread the idea that the RSS is only popular with upper caste Hindus. And finally, step 4 is getting PFI cadre elected, as well as them entering the ranks of the police and the judiciary. This is as has been alleged by the Maharashtra ATS in its charge sheet. Now, how have they come to this judgment in the charge sheet that's been filed before an anti-terror court? The ATS had arrested 5 alleged members of the PFI. This was in September of last year when there was a massive crackdown that happened nationwide across from Delhi to Mumbai to Kerala. They went on to record, of these 5 alleged members, 27 witness statements, as well as collecting documents, and came to this assertion that PFI members had held secret meetings in Chembur, in Dharavi, Kurla, Thane, Nerul, Panvel and Mumbra. As part of their meetings, discussions were also held to include Muslim youth and convince them that their religion is in danger, and in order to mobilize them against others. According to the ATS's charge sheet, the organization had intended to replace the Indian constitution with Sharia in order to establish an Islamic state. The documents added that the PFI wanted to paint a picture that atrocities are meted out against Muslims in the country, and Muslim youth should identify themselves as Muslims and not as Indians. Further, this plan was to radicalize the youth to use arms, for which they would seek help from international organizations, and to disrupt the nature of rule of law in the country. Now, while the PFI's sinister designs are unraveling, the government has also cracked down on the PFI over the last few months. In September of 2022, over 100 senior functionaries and cadre of the PFI were arrested. This was a joint operation conducted by the National Investigation Agency, the Enforcement Directorate, and the State Police in at least 15 different state locations across the country. Less than a week later came a second swoop. 270 PFI members were arrested from 7 states. Those arrested were allegedly involved in mobilizing sympathy for this prescribed outfit. The agencies cracked down on not just the cadre, but even those who were linked to the PFI in any tangential way. PFI workers hit back and went on a vandalism spree in Kerala and in large parts of Tamil Nadu as well, targeting shops and public transport during a so-called hartal. Within days, the centre banned the PFI for 5 years under the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. The Kerala High Court too slapped a 5 crore bill on PFI vandals, and the properties of PFI members were attached. The court had specifically said that whatever damages public transport and public infrastructure had sustained at the hands of these PFI individuals needs to be recovered from them. Now, in December, the NIA submitted an affidavit in a special court in Kochi and made some startling revelations in that affidavit. According to the NIA, the PFI is a secret wing of reporters to collect details of leaders of other communities and prepare a list of targets. Referring to some of the murders committed by PFI cadre in Kerala, the NIA claimed in its affidavit that victims were randomly selected by the leadership of PFI. They were studied, permissions were given to attack and kill the victims brutally so as to send a message of terror. Some PFI leaders and cadre had propagated the ideology of ISIS, and youths were encouraged to join terror outfits like the Lashkar-e-Taiba, Al-Qaeda and ISIS. The probe also revealed suspicious transaction of funds that were used for unlawful activities. Now, at the end of the day, the Popular Front of India is only another version, or a renamed version, if you will, of the Students' Islamic Movement of India, or SIMI. SIMI too was declared a banned terrorist organization way back in 2001. And just like the PFI's plan was to create an Islamic state, SIMI's aim was to quote-unquote liberate India through jihad. When SIMI was banned, the PFI rose and it further spread its wings, launching its political arm, the Social Democratic Party of India, the SDPI, and the student wing, the Campus Front of India. So whether it is SIMI or PFI or any other name, they have a history of molding this organization into something new and spreading the same hate. Let me now go across to our guests who are joining us. PK Jain is former IPS officer, Binay Kumar Singh, author and researcher, Atikur Rahman, Islamic scholar, also joining us. Atikur Rahman, the question that stares everyone in the face is, here is an organization that claimed to represent Indian Muslims. Here is an organization that said that Indian Muslims are victimized and the only way out is to, take jihad against the Indian state. Why should the Indian government not have proscribed this organization, banned this organization, ensured that all the members of this organization are put behind bars and all its assets and properties are attached?
Zakka, what I feel with this charge sheet and what you are claiming about PFI is, I was the one every time I have, supported the PFI, and now the government of India has banned it. Our support, my support especially, is only to such organizations which are constitutional in nature. The moment the government agencies establish that they are into, some illegal activities or unconstitutional activities, it's a far-fetched phenomena that any Muslim group, organization will be supporting such organization, period. The moment we say that the constitution is supreme in India and the constitution is workable, the government is ensuring everything related to constitution. There is no theory of any Islamic state.
But Atikur Rahman, why then were certain, even political parties that had been in power, why were they looking the other way to the activities of this notorious group of people?
This is a big question, Zakka, wherein the political parties, need to answer this. Furthermore, Since so many years we are discussing PFI, 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 but why was it not banned if the charges are so serious? Along with it, I would say the Vision 2047 document I have in my hand right now, which was given to me in Delhi by some PFI workers when I was in some studios of India channels. This is the Vision 2047. Nowhere it is mentioned that the PFI is into unconstitutional measures or they want to form Islamic State.
Okay, I want to go back
documents
and qualify this for our viewers. This is as per a charge sheet filed by the Maharashtra ATS. It is, of course, incumbent on the prosecution agencies to prove this in a court of law. So let me ask Mr. P.K. Jain, as a former IPS officer, how easy or difficult would it be to prove this in a court of law, Mr. Jain? Because the defense can always take the view that this was concocted or this was planted evidence, so on and so forth. No such thing. Like Atikur Rahman was saying, that there was no such thing in the Vision 2047 document of the PFI.
Zaka, very valid question. See, I would like to state here that it took the government of India some time to collect, collate and analyze the evidence that was available against this organization. This organization's footprint, the footprint of organization, footprint of organizing terrorist activities, footprint of creating a communal divide has been there for quite some time. The organization has been in the forefront of fanning communal violence in the state of Kerala and many other places. In fact, they have a very, very wide network in the country. It took some time for the intelligence organizations to collate the entire information, because I think it all happened with the change of the government. Earlier, the government was probably not in a mood to do it, and so was the government in the state of Kerala also. Now, once this information...
Okay, we'll go... All right.
It was created, and then the action was taken, and now it will not be very difficult, because see, organizations like SIMI, the earlier organizations like Indian Mujahideen, all these organizations were also banned. They also contested the ban on them. But the information and intelligence was so accurate and so overwhelming that they could not succeed in the courts at all. And this organization will also not be able to succeed in its design in case it was to contest it. My only regret here is that very few people have been taken into custody. Very few people have been arrested. In fact, the arrest and the seizure of confiscation of property should have been a much more wider activity by the investigating agencies, which to my mind has not taken place.
So let me ask Binay Kumar Singh. I'm just looking at the cases of murder in which PFI activists have been arrested. Of course, this has to be again proven in a court of law, but they are the main accused in these murder cases. And I want to list them out one by one. Karnataka, August 2022, the Praveen Nattaru murder case that we saw in coastal Karnataka. In Kerala, November 2021, the Sanjit murder case. Again in Kerala 2021, the Nandu murder case. Tamil Nadu 2019, V. Ramalingam murder case. Kerala 2018, Abhimanyu murder case. Kerala 2017, Bibin murder case. Karnataka 2017, Sharat murder case. I can go on and on. The list is almost endless of the number of heinous crimes, murders, in which PFI activists are the main accused. Wasn't this warning enough, Binay Kumar Singh, that this organization, its activities need to be curtailed, its activities need to be outlawed, because there are far too many of its members who are wanted for such heinous crime and for such multiple cases across multiple states?
Yeah, look, the matter is that even PFI is not surprised that why PFI is banned. PFI was born to be banned. It is SIMI. It is the new avatar of SIMI. And it is, you can say it is the same wine into the new bottle. The packaging is only new. And let me make it clear that PFI was practitioner of the 5th generation warfare, 5th generation warfare. And what are the ingredients of the 5th generation warfare? Social engineering plus propaganda. Social engineering blended with propaganda. So if you look at the modus operandi of PFI, Dalit Muslim Alliance, or identifying Muslims as just simply Muslims, not just as Indians, it was part of their social engineering, which is in fact, the modus operandi of the 5th generation warfare. And look, PFI is a very smart organization. They are very over smart. So it and the charge sheet filed by the Maharashtra ATS is nothing new. The same document which was seized in the Patna case.
Okay.
And something big was planned. They were planning to kill the Prime Minister of this country in Patna. So this Vision 2047, this document was seized in Patna. And let me make you once again this thing very clear, that there is two ideas of India. One idea is of the people, those who love India. They want India in 2047, when India completes 100 years of its independence. They want India to move into the next league. They want India to move into a developed nation, not just remain a developing nation. And the other idea is of the PFI, those who want to dismember India, those who want to bleed India, those who want to break India.
Atikur Rahman, you look at the strategy document in which it is said there is a pattern. There is a pattern in which they are trying to lure young Muslim boys and girls, radicalize them. This constant sort of narrative building that Muslims are victimized, the entire community is victimized. They will not be treated as equal citizens in India under an NDA government, under a Modi government. This constant sort of narrative building, almost victimization mentality that's been forged, that is contrary to the reality on the ground. The reality on the ground is that the number of communal incidents in the last 8 years of the NDA government has come down. Yes, there was a bump up in the first couple of years, but after that it has been coming down quite steadily. Number two, the government is saying that there is no discrimination when it comes to any of the government policies, from Swachh Bharat to Ujjwala to Har Ghar Jal, or any policy. It's not like the government says, oh, we will not give this to Muslim beneficiaries, or we will not send this to Muslim homes. So this narrative of constant victimization of an entire community, that is purely for nefarious purposes, because the reality does not bear that out.
Zakka, let the things be in perspective. You see, you tell me BFI, it is a banned organization. In the last couple of years, 8 years so, which Muslim organization have not been labeled the same charges? We have seen the Tablighi Jamaat event, the same charges were there against it: foreign funding, nefarious activities, illegal buildings, etc., etc. When you talk of madrasas, the same labeling of the charges. When you talk of the All India Muslim Personal Law Board, same charges. Which Muslim organization under the BJP rule has not been charged with nefarious activities? PFI, if they are committing some crimes, of course, I am not belittling the Maharashtra ATS or any other state agencies. These charges need to be proven in the court of law.
But Atikur Rahman, there are any number of Atikur Rahman. Once again, there are any number of Muslim social welfare organizations that are all functioning in this country. There are political parties who claim to represent only Muslims who are thriving in this country. So where from does this narrative of victimhood, this mentality of victimhood, where does that come from? Yes, you can cite instances of lynching, etc., but those are one-off instances. Those are not mass patterns.
Well, Zakka, I would answer this. I am telling you, since the BJP led by RSS government has taken power in India, they are, trying every effort to demonize the community. They are trying to marginalize the Muslim community. And I'll give you one single example, that the minority status of the community is being belittled by the spokesperson of the BJP, saying that they are not a minority but the second largest majority. Secondly, they have challenged the Aligarh Muslim unity minority status in the Supreme Court. Third and most important, Zakka, I am telling you, since the days the BJP has come to power, and I am not supporting, for God's sake, PFI.
Okay, got it.
PFI support or any support to any such organization is only up to the limit of they being constitutional in nature.
Okay. Binay Kumar Singh, please respond to what Atikur Rahman is saying, that since the NDA government came to power, there is this constant sort of name calling and shaming of Muslims that happens in the public domain, which leads many in the community to believe that they are not treated as equal citizens in this country?
I have serious objections to what Mr. Atikur Rahman has said. And Mr. Atikur Rahman is doing the same thing what the PFI does. You are trying to instigate the Muslims, you are trying to instigate a certain community that they are not treated well. I can say without doubt that the Indian Muslims are the most peace-loving and the most happiest citizen on this earth. You want the Muslims to be like they are treated in Pakistan, or they are treated like they are treated in China? Indian Muslims have no complaint from this country. And it is people with their own agenda, their organizations with their nefarious designs and agenda, those who are instigating the Muslim youths. And look, the radicalization of Muslim youths, that is not a matter which is just limited to India. It is it is across the globe. Even the country like Pakistan, they are trying to deal with the radicalization of
I would like to
youths in higher educational institutions. They are trying to find out ways. And I have serious objection if you say that this is a RSS government. No, this is not. This is a government of people of India. And all the Hindus and Muslims and Sikhs and Isais, everyone has voted for that.
Okay.
This is the Indian government.
I would like
I'm afraid I'm out of time. I want to leave it at that. Binay Kumar Singh, Atikur Rahman, and of course, Mr. B.K. Jain for joining us. We'll see. Like I said, this is basis a charge sheet that's been filed by the Maharashtra ATS, ENA and Anti-Terror Court. This will, of course, have to be proven at all three layers of jurisprudence, as it were, from the lower court to the High Court to the Supreme Court. I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, right on the other side, the death toll from the massive earthquakes in Turkey have now crossed 17,000. India's Operation Dost is on in full swing. We'll have latest details right on the other side of this break. Few months, and the new Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is expected to follow in the footsteps of his Democratic predecessor Nancy Pelosi with a visit to Taiwan later this year. Days after the US shot down a suspected Chinese spy balloon, the first images of the debris were released by the US Navy. The balloon, it was around 200 feet tall. Just wrap your head around that figure, 200 feet high. It was shot down early Saturday morning as it floated off the coast of South Carolina. The US Navy is using underwater drones, warships, inflatable vessels to try and retrieve whatever pieces they can from this balloon. The debris are now being taken to an FBI lab in Virginia to analyze the capabilities of this balloon. What danger could it have possibly meant for the United States and for US citizens? Remember, the US insists that the balloon was used by the Chinese military for spying. While China has acknowledged that the balloon was indeed Chinese, they have called it a weather balloon that had blown off course. Now, this balloon has caused a serious diplomatic face-off between the US and China. Just take a look at the series of events over the last 10 days. The balloon first entered American airspace towards the end of January, flying around the southern tip of Alaska. It then entered Canadian airspace to then float back into American airspace. It made its way over Montana, which is home to the Malmstrom Air Force Base, which is one of the three sites which operates and maintains the silo-based intercontinental ballistic missiles. Now, the balloon also cast a shadow over U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken's planned visit to Beijing. He was supposed to go there on the 3rd of February. Just hours before his departure, Blinken decided to postpone his trip. According to the U.S. State Department, the surveillance balloon had undermined the very purpose of the trip. The following day, the United States military shot down the balloon as it hovered over the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of South Carolina. A single missile fired from an F-22 Raptor stealth fighter jet brought down the balloon, which had been flying at about 60,000 to 65,000 feet. Remember, normal aircraft fly about 30 to 40,000 feet. This was flying about 20,000 feet higher. All flights were grounded in North and South Carolina shortly before the shooting down of the balloon. Now, Chinese President Xi Jinping currently has his hands full with domestic problems like the fallout of his zero-COVID policy, and perhaps he doesn't want to drag out the dispute with the United States, which could explain the rather muted reaction from China to the balloon being shot down. China claimed that the United States is using armed force to bring down the balloon, and that is an excessive reaction. It expressed strong discontent and protest against the U.S. action. The Chinese have also accused the United States of violating international norms by shooting down the balloon, but made no mention of the violation of international law. China has also said it would defend its legitimate rights in the interests of the enterprise involved, which could help it make the case that the government was not directly involved in launching this balloon. China has also refused a conversation with U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin. In his State of the Union address, U.S. President Joe Biden made a reference to this Chinese balloon episode.
I'm committed to work with China where we can advance American interests and benefit the world, but make no mistake about it. As we made clear last week, if China threatens our sovereignty, we will act to protect our country, and we did.
Now, according to the United States, China's fleet of spy balloons have targeted several countries, including India. As per the Washington Post, the surveillance balloon effort has operated for several years now, partly out of the Hainan province, which is in the southern coast of China. They have collected information on military assets in other countries and areas of emerging strategic interest to China, including the Indo-Pacific, India, Japan, and of course the thorny issue of Taiwan. These surveillance airships are operated in part by the People's Liberation Army. They have been spotted over at least 5 continents. They are part of China's fleet of balloons developed to conduct surveillance operations, and they have violated the sovereignty of other countries apart from the United States. So, could the popping of a balloon turn into a watershed moment in the rivalry between the United States and China? The balloon crisis could exacerbate already tense ties where the US and Chinese forces have come into very close contact, including over the South China Sea. US officials are increasingly worried that Chinese state companies may be assisting Russia's military effort against Ukraine by providing technology and semiconductors, which may raise the pressure for action by the White House. The Biden administration is already expected to create a body to review outbound US investments into China the next few months, and the new Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is expected to follow in the footsteps of his Democratic predecessor Nancy Pelosi with a visit to Taiwan later this year. Days after the US shot down a suspected Chinese spy balloon, the first images of the debris were released by the US Navy. The balloon, it was around 200 feet tall. Just wrap your head around that figure, 200 feet high. It was shot down early Saturday morning as it floated off the coast of South Carolina. The US Navy is using underwater drones, warships, inflatable vessels to try and retrieve whatever pieces they can from this balloon. The debris are now being taken to an FBI lab in Virginia to analyze the capabilities of this balloon. What danger could it have possibly meant for the United States and for US citizens? Remember, the US insists that the balloon was used by the Chinese military for spying. While China has acknowledged that the balloon was indeed Chinese, they have called it a weather balloon that had blown off course. Now, this balloon has caused a serious diplomatic face-off between the US and China. Just take a look at the series of events over the last 10 days. The balloon first entered American airspace towards the end of January, flying around the southern tip of Alaska. It then entered Canadian airspace to then float back into American airspace. It made its way over Montana, which is home to the Malmstrom Air Force Base, which is one of the 3 sites which operates and maintains the silo-based intercontinental ballistic missiles. Now, the balloon also cast a shadow over U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken's planned visit to Beijing. He was supposed to go there on the 3rd of February. Just hours before his departure, Blinken decided to postpone his trip. According to the U.S. State Department, the surveillance balloon had undermined the very purpose of the trip. The following day, the United States military shot down the balloon as it hovered over the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of South Carolina. A single missile fired from an F-22 Raptor stealth. Turkey is still reeling from the massive earthquake that struck the country Monday. The death toll has now crossed 20,000, and now that 72 hours have also passed, hope is fading off fast for finding any more survivors. But thousands of local rescuers and teams sent by different countries are battling the bitter cold and continuing to search through the rubble of collapsed buildings. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has declared a state of emergency in 10 provinces, but residents in several damaged cities have been voicing their anger over the slow response by the authorities and the quality of buildings that crumbled like a house of cards. Amid mounting criticism, Erdogan visited one of the worst hit spots and he admitted to shortcomings.
An audience of agony watches, waits.
Yanına gittiler, cennet bahçesinde buluşturdum. Biz gittik elhamdülillah. düşmüş. Kuzum yatağa uçmuş üstüne de kolanlar düşmüş. Nasıl kaldırsın? 7 yaşında yavrum o bedenler. Kuzum.
A hospital volunteer told us over 300 bodies here are unclaimed in the morgue. The numbers rising fast, along with tempers. It is chaos, and whether any government could have moved faster was the question dogging Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan when he flew into town briefly. This stadium suddenly home to possibly thousands, for who knows how long. Many refugees from Syria now perhaps losing their homes for the third time. That's nearly as many years as some have been alive. They have nothing but the state's generosity to rely on, which for now means 12 people in this tent.
Yani ne kadar burayı ne kadar bırakırlar bilmiyorum. Zaten evlere de su evde yok zaten gidebileceğimiz. Bir yer belli güvenli bir yer olana kadar.
Tek güvencemiz devletimiz yani şimdi. Sadece devletimizi bekliyoruz. Devletimiz ne yaparsa biz onların yapacağına razıyız sadece.
For now, the question is what they could have done to not arrive for so many entombed here too late.
The man who built this house, why is it collapsed when so many around it are still standing? And frankly, a government culture here that has enriched people so heavily through construction, where building regulations clearly are not always met. That will continue to grow as the death toll does in the days ahead. But the devastation here in Antakya, absolutely devastating.
Well, India has been an early responder in the relief and rescue efforts in both Turkey as well as in Syria. 6 plane loads of personnel and material have been rushed to both countries over the last 3 days. Operation Dost was launched to provide support in terms of both search as well as rescue efforts, and also medical assistance, which folks there are in dire need of. Just a few hours ago, the NDRF successfully rescued a 6-year-old girl from under the rubble in Gaziantep. India has decided to immediately dispatch teams of the NDRF, medical teams and relief material to Turkey, following Prime Minister Narendra Modi's instructions to offer all possible assistance to Turkey and to Syria on day one itself. Now, this began the relief effort that was initiated by India. It was put into motion within hours of the earthquake. This was Monday morning. The first set of meetings that happened at 10 a.m., External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, he chaired a meeting in his office in South Block, and that was when the decision was taken to send aid immediately. Then around 11:30 a.m., the Prime Minister tweeted, one of the first few heads of government to put out his condolences and expressing anguish over what happened in Turkey. At 12:30 p.m., the Principal Secretary to the Prime Minister, he held an interministerial meeting. It had other senior secretaries of government, including the Home Secretary, the Health Secretary, the Director General of the National Disaster Relief Force. They were all present in that meeting. And then, shortly after that meeting, at 1 p.m., Turkey officially requested India for assistance. India received an official email from the Turkish embassy here in New Delhi asking for assistance. And then at 3 p.m., there was another meeting that happened in South Block, this time involving officials, high-ranking officials of the Defense Ministry, the National Disaster Relief Force, as well as the National Disaster Management Authority, about various operations and resources that need to be sent to Turkey. Exactly 12 hours after that meeting, the first C-17 Indian Air Force aircraft took off from the Palam Air Base in Delhi to Turkey. Over the next 2 days, 5 more such planes, the C-17 Globemasters, have taken off from Delhi. They've been filled to the brim with medicines, with blankets, with emergency material, and of course, machines that are required to cut through the rubble in the hope of finding survivors, even though that hope is fast receding. In collaboration with the army, the government is also jetting off humanitarian aid to Turkey and Syria. So what exactly has been sent under Operation Dost? Search and rescue personnel, there are specially trained dog squads, as well as drilling machines that have all landed to help the authorities in Turkey look for survivors on the ground. Hand and power tools, lighting equipment, airlifting bags, chainsaws, angle cutters, rotary rescue saws, victim location equipments, life detectors have also been sent to assist the various personnel. Tons of relief material and consignments consisting of life-saving medicines and emergency medical items too have been put on those planes. And of course, specially trained medical personnel who will set up mobile or field hospitals in these quake-ravaged regions. So let's break this down in terms of numbers just to get you a better sense of how mammoth a relief effort this is. 6 plane loads of emergency relief material amounting to 140 tons. This includes protective gear, emergency use of medicines, and medical equipment like ECG machines and heart rate monitors. 3 teams of the National Disaster Response Force, consisting of 150 personnel, they have also been sent as part of these 6 planes. They've carried equipment allowing for detection, location, access, and the extrication of people who are trapped under the rubble. A 4-member dog squad has also been sent to take part in the rescue operations. These dogs are trained to sniff for survivors in disaster-hit regions. And 99 specially trained personnel are involved in setting up a field hospital. Once it is functional, it will be a 30-bed, fully equipped medical facility with an operation theatre, X-ray machines, and ventilators.
Operation Dost is a very important operation, and this is the operation of friendship, because Dost is a word in Hindi and Turkish which means friends, and this operation shows our friendship between India and Turkey, and friends always help each other. Now we have 2 huge devastating earthquakes in Turkey, and India is sending now search and rescue teams to Turkey. So because friends, real friends, help each other in their days if they are in need.
In the last 15 years, India has taken the lead in providing relief in emergency and disaster situations, both in the near neighborhood as well as beyond. After the 2004 tsunami, India sent its forces to carry out multiple rescue operations in Sri Lanka. It also provided medical assistance to thousands of victims by setting up medical camps in that country. After Hurricane Katrina barreled the United States in 2005, an Indian Air Force aircraft delivered 25 tons of relief supplies, including blankets and bed sheets and tarpaulin sheets. When the 2011 tsunami wreaked havoc in Japan, apart from relief material, India also sent 46 members of the National Disaster Relief Force for search and rescue operations in Fukushima and surrounding areas. And in the aftermath of the 2015 Nepal earthquake, the NDRF deployed 16 of its urban search and rescue teams, which comprised more than 700 rescuers. So, once again, underlining that when it comes to disaster management, when it comes to the hour of need, an hour of crisis as it were, diplomacy should be put front and center. There could be differences diplomatically between India and Turkey, but now is not the time for that. Now is the time to show solidarity, to pray for Turkey and Syria, and to lend all possible assistance that any country can, and India taking the lead in that. That's a wrap. Thanks very much for tuning in. Aircraft fly about 30 to 40,000 feet. This was flying about 20,000 feet higher. All flights were grounded in North and South Carolina.
Hello, Namaskar. This is First Post and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. In a couple of weeks from now, the Ukraine war will complete 1 year. President Zelensky is touring Europe, asking for more weapons. But Europeans are dealing with a bombshell, yet another revelation that the White House was quick to deny and the Western press doesn't really want to talk about. Did America bomb the Nord Stream pipelines? Russia wants a probe, but who is listening? We bring you the details of the investigation that could change the course of this war. Meanwhile, Turkey is picking up the pieces, 15,000 dead and counting. President Erdogan is on the back foot. He has publicly snubbed Pakistan.
The Pakistani Prime Minister wanted to visit. Turkey said, don't come. But why did he want to go at a time like this? We'll tell you about it. Also, why Disney is firing 7,000 people. Is it the end of the streaming boom? It's an action-packed Thursday. The headlines first. Trade, chips, balloons. America and China are fighting over everything, it seems. US President Biden said Chinese leader Xi Jinping faces, quote-unquote, enormous problems. China calls the remarks, and I'm quoting, extremely irresponsible and counter to basic diplomatic etiquette. North Korea's Kim Jong-un shows off his daughter and his nukes. The largest number of nuclear missiles were displayed at a military parade, including more than 10 Hwasong-17 intercontinental ballistic missiles capable of striking the US mainland. Russia's private army, the Wagner mercenary group, says it has ended its recruitment drive at Russian prisons. Reports say the prisoners were promised amnesty on their return to Russia if they survive the war in Ukraine. Pakistan says it will have a bailout deal today, a deal worth $7 billion. Finance Minister Ishaq Dar says matters between the government and the International Monetary Fund will be settled by today. And one more chatbot is entering the fray. Chinese tech giant Alibaba says it's developing its own artificial intelligence tool, joining the race with another Chinese giant Baidu and Google's Bard. Yesterday it was the United Kingdom, today it was Brussels. Europe is rolling out the red carpet for Zelensky, even if they won't give him or his country an EU membership anytime soon. And now the tour has been overshadowed by a major expose. The United States bombed the Nord Stream pipelines. That's the claim made by Seymour Hersh, a Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative journalist, the same one who exposed the My Lai massacre in the Vietnam War. And now he says America bombed Russia's pipeline to Europe. This could change everything. Zelensky is running out of time. Ukraine says a major Russian offensive is imminent in this month, and it wants all the help it can get. But Europe is dragging its heels. Tonight, we've put together the most comprehensive report for you. We'll start with the Nord Stream revelations. Do you remember these pictures? This is the Nord Stream pipeline. It was leaking last year. The Nord Stream is the lifeline of Europe. In fact, these are two pipelines, the Nord Stream 1 and 2. They were bombed last year. In September 2022, a series of powerful explosions were reported. Both pipelines took the hit. Initially, fingers were pointed at Russia, but there was no credible evidence. Now, a new report has emerged. It says the pipelines were bombed by the US. This is a 5,000-word report. We've managed to put together a summary, and here are the 5 big takeaways. Number 1, the bombing was a covert operation. It was carried out by the CIA. This is according to the report. Takeaway number 2, the US used deep-sea divers for this mission. They mobilized during a NATO military exercise. That NATO drill, was used as a cover. Takeaway number 3, mines were planted along the pipelines. They were detonated remotely. Takeaway number 4, the CIA worked with Norway to bomb these pipelines. And takeaway number 5, the orders came from the very top. US President Joe Biden ordered this operation. And that perhaps is the biggest takeaway from this report. Did Biden sabotage Europe's gas lifeline? All of this is based on an investigation by journalist Seymour Hersh. He's broken some big stories in the past, like the mass murder of 500 civilians by American soldiers in Vietnam. This was in 1968. Hersh has exposed governments and presidents in the past too. But some of his work has also been criticized for lack of evidence. What about this latest report? Does he have evidence this time? Washington says he doesn't. The US government has rejected the report. They're calling the claims preposterous. The US State Department issued a statement. I have a copy with me, and this is what it says. I'm quoting, "The idea that the United States was in any way involved in the apparent sabotage of these pipelines is preposterous. It is nothing more than a function of Russian disinformation and should be treated as such." Of course, Russia doesn't agree. It wants an international probe into the Nord Stream blasts. The Russian foreign minister says he's putting together a report himself.
We are also preparing a kind of report into what has happened over the past year and what we managed to uncover. It is not just on US military biological programs that they're trying to make out. they don't have anything to do with, lying as they always do. And it is not just about the US being directly involved in the explosions on the Nord Stream pipelines. Mrs. Nuland has already pleaded guilty to it. So, there are many things we can remember to show the methods that the United States uses to achieve dominance.
These claims will cast a shadow on Zelensky's Europe trip. He began the visit yesterday. The first stop was the United Kingdom. Zelensky got the full royal treatment there. He met with King Charles. And then he sat down with the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. His final stop was Westminster Hall. Quite a grand setting there. Zelensky used this opportunity to do what he does best, make more demands. He relaunched his campaign for Western fighter jets. In fact, the former actor pulled a bit of a stunt here. He brought a fighter pilot's helmet with him. What for? To present it to the Speaker of the House of Commons. The House of Commons, of course, is the lower house of the British Parliament. Full marks for the showmanship. It was followed by an appeal.
We have freedom. Give us wings to protect it. I trust this symbol will help us for our next coalition of the planes, and I appeal to you and the world with simple and yet most important words. Combat aircrafts for Ukraine. Wings for freedom.
Wings of freedom. That was Zelensky's appeal. Did it work though? To some extent it did. The UK has begun looking into sending combat aircraft to Ukraine. They're looking at the possibility. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak says nothing is off the table, but his friends in Europe may not share his enthusiasm. Zelensky's next stop was Paris. He met with President Macron of France and Chancellor Scholz of Germany, both in Paris. These two leaders, Macron and Scholz, hold the key to unlocking the fighter jets. So Zelensky repeated his demand. Well, they offered support, but not the jets. No commitment on giving Ukraine fighter jets.
Et donc nous sommes heureux de t'accueillir ce soir ici et le chancelier Scholz me rejoint ce soir.
Its European partners and its allies to win the war. Russia cannot and must not win.
We have also provided Ukraine with massive financial, humanitarian and weapon support, heavy artillery, air defenses and most recently the delivery of battle tanks. And we will continue to do so for as long as necessary.
A few hours before making that statement, Scholz was in the Bundestag, the lower house of the German parliament. Here he launched a scathing attack. The target was Germany's Western allies, more specifically the United States. Listen to what he said there, and I'm quoting, "We preserve and strengthen this cohesion by first preparing decisions confidentially and only then communicating them, the decisions. What harms our unity is a public competition to outdo each other along the lines of battle tanks, submarines, aircraft. Who is asking for more?" This is the German Chancellor. Reports say Scholz was referring to his cooperation with US President Joe Biden. This was about the decision to supply tanks to Ukraine. Why is the German leader upset? Is he unhappy with America's approach? Well, he didn't say that. Guess he didn't have to. But coming back to the Nord Stream pipelines, why are they such a big deal? Why are they called Europe's lifeline? And how did they give Russia so much leverage over Europe? It's a story of geopolitics, economics, and shifting alliances. The Nord Stream pipelines were not the only means for Russia to send gas to Europe, but they were extremely lucrative and offered Moscow political leverage. Our next report tells you why the inside story of these two pipelines could change the course of this war. There are two Nord Stream pipelines, the Nord Stream 1 and 2. Both pipelines supply natural gas from Russia to Germany. Russia has the world's largest deposits of natural gas. It is used throughout the country, and Russia has more than enough to export. The Nord Stream pipelines originate at two different points in western Russia. They go beneath the Baltic Sea, then surface in northeastern Germany. Both pipelines stretch for about 1,200 kilometers. In Russia, they're connected to the country's own natural gas pipelines. They reach Germany from where other pipelines carry natural gas all over Europe. The Nord Stream 1 is operated by the company Nord Stream AG. The company was founded in 2005 and is headquartered in Switzerland. It's a joint venture between Russian state gas giant Gazprom and German, French, and Dutch energy companies. Gazprom owns 51% of Nord Stream AG, making it the largest shareholder. This is significant because Gazprom is a Russian state-owned company, so the profits from the Nord Stream pipelines directly end up in Moscow's coffers, which means even if they did not want to, Europe was funding Russia's war in Ukraine by just using natural gas. And though they supported Ukraine, European nations could not just stop using Russian gas overnight. This is because Europe had been dependent on cheap Russian gas for years. Work on the Nord Stream 1 pipeline project began in 1997. After the initial studies and finalizing the schedule, construction began in December 2005. The first part of the Nord Stream 1 pipeline was completed and officially inaugurated in 2011. The ceremony was held in Germany, and the leaders of Russia, Germany, France, and the Netherlands all took part. This heralded the era of cheap Russian gas in Western Europe. Germany, in particular, became increasingly reliant on it. Before the war in Ukraine, Germany depended on Russia for 55% of its gas. About 35% of all Russian gas to EU members came via this pipeline. The nominal capacity of the Nord Stream 1 was 55 billion cubic meters per annum. In 2021, the pipeline transported more than 59 billion cubic meters of natural gas. Nord Stream 2 would have expanded Russia's capacity to 110 billion cubic meters. This would have made the EU even more dependent, and those dependencies could have been weaponized. Before the September explosions shut down both the pipelines, Russia was already manipulating the flow of gas. In June, it restricted supplies by about 75%. In July, Russia shut down the pipeline for maintenance and cut supplies further when it reopened. Russia shut down the pipeline entirely in late August. It blamed Western sanctions for the shutdowns and restrictions. It said sanctions made maintenance difficult. And every time Russia squeezed the gas pipelines, prices rose around the world. Russia could hurt the West just by tweaking the Nord Stream output. It could hold Europe to ransom due to the dependency on cheap gas. Until September, that is. Blasts in the Baltic Sea damaged both Nord Stream pipelines. Though they'd already been shut by then, natural gas contained in them was released into the atmosphere. It is unknown if the pipelines will ever work again. The blasts had another effect. They forced Europe to wean away from cheap Russian gas.
Say me if it's okay, okay?
Let's shift our attention to Turkey. 2 days after the devastating earthquakes, their president was on the front line. Recep Tayyip Erdogan made an honest confession.
Certainly there have been shortfalls as the conditions have been clear. It's impossible to be prepared to face a disaster like this.
Turkey was unprepared. It's evident. The crisis is spiraling. The death toll has crossed the 15,000 mark. Thousands of buildings have collapsed. Yesterday, their stock markets witnessed a bloodbath. $35 billion worth of wealth was erased. $35 billion in a day. Trading has been suspended for 5 days. President Erdogan faces a crisis of a lifetime. But guess what is he thinking about? Elections. They're due in 3 months. The Turkish president still wants to go ahead with the polls. Reports say Erdogan wants voting to happen on the 14th of May. This is as per the original plan. 10 provinces in the country are affected by the quake. They are under a state of emergency, and now the president wants to lift this emergency sooner than planned. He's making promises to voters.
Of course, there were some problems on the first day, but after that, the situation was brought under control on the second day and today. We are carrying on managing with rubble. God willing, we will start to remove rubble. God willing, our aim is to rebuild houses in 1 year, as we already did previously in areas hit by earthquakes, both Kahramanmaras and other provinces. Our people must not worry. We won't allow any of our citizens to be left in the streets.
A vow to rebuild entire cities in 1 year. That sounded a lot like a campaign speech. There was a good chance it was. Erdogan toured some of the quake-hit regions yesterday. These are strongholds of the AK party. This is Erdogan's party, the Justice and Development Party, AKP. People in these regions tend to vote for the AKP. Now they've been hit by the deadliest earthquake in a generation. Rescue efforts are still on, but they leave a lot to be desired. Many people still remain trapped, and the president seems more worried about retaining his votes. Public anger is mounting. Victims say they're not getting the kind of help they need. They still don't have the right rescue equipment, the expertise and the support to pull people out of the rubble. Rescue workers are using bare hands to dig through the concrete. The survivors are frustrated. They're appealing for help.
There is a bit of chaos, as you see. We are suffering. Please, whoever hears us, help us. We are here. Everything has collapsed. There are cracks everywhere. Our homes have collapsed.
We are living here in despair. Here is our home and here is our situation. I don't remember how I got out of rubbles and how I rescued my kids. We ask for help from our government, from our state, and from the world. And we don't want anything else.
Is Erdogan listening to these voices? Where is all the relief material going? What happened to the relief funds collected from the Turkish people? I'm talking about the famous earthquake tax. It is officially called the Special Communications Tax. This was introduced in 1999. It was right after a deadly earthquake hit the city of Izmit. More than 17,000 people died then, 1999. The government introduced what is called an earthquake tax to gather funds to deal with such calamities. And this tax is still in place all these years later. It is charged on the use of internet and mobile phone services. What is the purpose of the tax again? Disaster prevention and development of Turkey's emergency services. How much money does this fund have? Around 88 billion lira, according to some estimates, which is about $4.6 billion US. This is above and beyond the foreign aid that Turkey is getting. So again, where did all the money go? No answers yet. Only speculation and theories doing the rounds. One report says the tax proceeds were used to fund infrastructure projects. Another report claims the money was used to repay loans to the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. Now, we've not been able to verify any of this, and the government has issued no statement. An opposition lawmaker has questioned Erdogan. He said, and I'm quoting, "You've been collecting earthquake tax to protect people for years. 10 provinces are dying. You are still waiting for financial aid." Criticism of Erdogan is spreading on social media. Guess what he did? Shut down Twitter. That happened yesterday. Twitter went offline in Turkey. Critics seem to be facing a crackdown. The Turkish police force detained 18 people and arrested 5. On what grounds? Police say they shared, quote-unquote, provocative posts on social media. The Erdogan government does not tolerate dissent. The state of emergency helps. It may or may not help the victims, but it gives the government an excuse to go after critics. Vantage continues after a short break.
Country, and we did.
Now, according to the United States, China's fleet of spy balloons have targeted several countries, including India. As per the Washington Post, the surveillance balloon effort has operated for several years now, partly out of the Hainan province, which is in the southern coast of China. They have collected information on military assets in other countries and areas of emerging strategic interest to China, including the Indo-Pacific, India, Japan, and of course the thorny issue of Taiwan. These surveillance airships are operated in part by the People's Liberation Army. They have been spotted over at least 5 continents. They are part of China's fleet of balloons developed to conduct surveillance operations, and they have violated the sovereignty of other countries apart from the United States. So, could the popping of a balloon turn into a watershed moment in the rivalry between the United States and China? The balloon crisis could exacerbate already tense ties where the US and Chinese forces have come into very close contact, including over the South China Sea. US officials are increasingly worried that Chinese state companies may be assisting Russia's military effort against Ukraine by providing technology and semiconductors, which may raise the pressure for action by the White House. The Biden administration is already expected to create a body to review outbound US investments into China the next few months, and the new Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is expected to follow in the footsteps of his Democratic predecessor Nancy Pelosi with a visit to Taiwan later this year. Days after the US shot down a suspected Chinese spy balloon, the first images of the debris were released by the US Navy. The balloon, it was around 200 feet tall. Just wrap your...
The government of Turkey has a lot on its plate, and that's an understatement. The last thing they want is to attend to guests. But who wants to pay a visit to Turkey at this time? The Prime Minister of Pakistan. He wanted to go to Ankara. The Turks have told him, no thank you, don't come now. Not sure what the Pakistanis were expecting, but they've got just what they deserved. This country sure has a knack for global humiliation. Pakistan had a big plan laid out, a full delegation led by the Prime Minister himself. Shehbaz Sharif was supposed to leave on Wednesday. With him, Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari and a bunch of senior officials. What were they going for? To show solidarity with Turkey, because that's what Turkey needs the most, the solidarity of Pakistan. Brought to it by a heavy delegation of the Pakistani government. Rescue and relief operations, well, they can wait. Pakistan thought Turkey would lay out the red carpet for its visiting delegation. The opposite happened. Pakistan was told to cancel the visit. Any guesses why? Because Turkey neither has the time nor the resources to entertain a Pakistani delegation at this point. Again, why were these leaders going in the first place? They said they wanted to personally express condolences, to stand in solidarity with Turkey. It makes no sense whatsoever. What Erdogan's country needs right now is help. Aid and resources, not a contingent of foreign dignitaries to entertain while its people remain stuck in the rubble. No wonder they asked the Pakistani Prime Minister to cancel his visit. They said they're quote-unquote busy in the earthquake rescue and relief operations. Well, that's quite a snub, and a public snub at that, from a country that has always sided with Pakistan. How is Pakistan taking it? They've seen enough snubs to get used to them. They're trying to save face. Express News cited sources in the Pakistani Foreign Ministry. And things get a bit funny here. Pakistan says Shehbaz Sharif's visit got cancelled due to, wait for it, bad weather. Pakistan says its Prime Minister would not be able to visit the affected areas. Why? Because his helicopter would not be able to fly during bad weather. Fair enough. What about the storm at home? Pakistan is collapsing without an earthquake. It is facing the worst economic crisis in its history, the worst since Pakistan was formed. A new report sheds light on their colossal mismanagement. This country has taken more than 20 loans from the International Monetary Fund. That's the highest number in the world. And guess what? None of the loans have been completed, according to this report, meaning the IMF never disbursed the full amount to Pakistan. Why? Because Pakistan has the distinguished track record of not fulfilling the IMF's conditions. They violate the terms each and every time, and the money stops. Then they ask for another loan. This country will sink if it doesn't get bailed out. So it keeps taking loans, not just from international agencies, but also from countries like China, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, perhaps even Turkey. Pakistan is desperate. Inflation stood at a 48-year high last year, more than 27%. The currency is depreciating, forex reserves are dwindling, power blackouts seem endless. So what if Turkey is struggling to cope with the impact of an earthquake? The Pakistani begging bowl waits for none. It sees no place in time. It's always there, waiting to be filled. And for Pakistan, the Turkish snub is very embarrassing, because this is one of the last countries that still takes Pakistan seriously, or it did until a few days back. But you see, brotherly ties have their limits too. Guess the same can be said for another set of countries, India and Bangladesh, a very special relationship. Bangladesh is a country crucial to India's interests, a country that India helped liberate by fighting a war with Pakistan, a country that is an important partner of India. It's a country that was actually part of the undivided Bharat before the British broke it up. So there were a lot of Hindus in Bangladesh. There still are. But the picture has changed considerably. In 1901, Hindus made up 33% of the population of what is now Bangladesh. 33%. Do you know what the number is today? 7.9%. Hindus constitute less than 8% of the population of today's Bangladesh. Where did the rest of them go? About 3 million Bengali Hindus fled to India during partition. But even after that, Hindus made up a significant chunk of Bangladesh's population. In 1951, they made up about 22% of the country's population. Back then, Bangladesh was called East Pakistan, and living under Pakistani rule was a nightmare for Bengali Hindus. Today's Bangladesh calls itself a secular country, but living in it is not exactly a walk in the park for Hindus. Bangladeshi Hindus are under constant threat. Their way of life, their temples, their scriptures, even their idols, everything has come under attack. On Sunday, 14 Hindu temples were vandalized in northeastern Bangladesh. The police say the attacks were orchestrated. At least 27 idols have been desecrated. These are idols which Hindus worship. Who orchestrated these attacks? Islamists. These are radicals suspected to be members of the Bangladesh Jamaat-e-Islami. What's the Jamaat-e-Islami? For starters, it's a group that traces its roots back to the Jamaat-e-Islami Pakistan. This outfit strongly opposed Bangladesh's independence from Pakistan, and now they're targeting Bangladeshi Hindus and other minorities. Some politicians are playing along. Take the case of Tariq Rahman. I'll tell you who he is, but first let me tell you what he said. Scriptures of the Hindu religion do not offer any moral teaching. All the religious scriptures are porn scripts. This is a political leader speaking. Tariq Rahman is an opposition leader in Bangladesh, a top aide of Nurul Haq Noor, the man leading the charge against the Sheikh Hasina government. Do you know who supports them? The Jamaat-e-Islami, the same organization whose members have been going on a rampage against Hindus in Bangladesh. Can you connect the dots yet? Radical Islamists are running a campaign against the Sheikh Hasina government, and caught in the crossfire are the Hindus of Bangladesh. By the way, this is not a new phenomenon. It's been going on for years, well, decades technically. Let me tell you about the recent cases though. In 2021, Durga Puja festivities turned bloody across Bangladesh. Houses belonging to Hindus were attacked. 7 people were killed. The atmosphere was so tense, they had to call off the Bijoya Dashami procession. Last month, a Hindu man's sweet shop was attacked by radicals. This happened in the Barisal area of Bangladesh. But this was hardly the most shocking part of the incident. The real danger to Hindus came after the attack on the sweet shop. Islamists threatened to make the area Hindu-free by killing all of them. One would expect the Bangladesh government to come down hard against all such elements, but that's not how it works. So far, the government has only reacted when an incident creates a social media storm. Hindus say the perpetrators are going unpunished. Criminal cases from the Durga Puja violence of 2021 are still pending. I have some data with me. Look at what this says. This is from just last year. 154 people belonging to religious minorities were killed in Bangladesh last year. 62 people from minority communities went missing. 39 women were raped. There were attempts on the life of more than 400 people from minority communities. They were left injured, but somehow some of them survived. Another 849 people were threatened. And these are just the registered or reported cases. Hindus are Bangladesh's second largest religious group. Yet they're living in fear. Fear that their houses will be torched, that they will be attacked, that their temples will be destroyed, and their gods defiled. Nobody should have to live like this, in constant fear. What's the Indian government doing about the violence against Hindus in Bangladesh? Well, not very much at the moment, at least not that we know of. New Delhi should push Dhaka to act. If India can liberate Bangladesh from Pakistan, it can surely do more to protect Indic minorities in Bangladesh. Meanwhile, Iran is flexing its military muscle. This week, it unveiled an Air Force base, an underground Air Force base codenamed Eagle 44. Iran says this base can store and operate fighter jets and drones. Then Iran celebrated its Air Force Day. The star attraction was a missile with the words "Death to Israel" written in Hebrew. Iran is clearly upping the ante as tensions continue to rise in West Asia. Here's a report.
On Wednesday, Iran celebrated its annual Air Force Day. Its supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, attended a meeting with Air Force members in the capital Tehran. About 200 kilometers south of Tehran lies the city of Isfahan. There, the Islamic Revolution Guard Corps held a public military exhibition. They showcased Iran's military achievements. People walked around looking at displays featuring drones, rocket launchers, and missiles. One of the missiles had Hebrew words written on it. It said, "Death to Israel." Both the message and the venue of the exhibition are significant. Before we get to the details, let's look at the recent timeline of events. Tensions have been rising since Israel re-elected Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He was sworn in as the head of Israel's most right-wing government. During his campaign, Netanyahu vowed to be tough on Iran. Last month, the US and Israel held their largest ever joint exercise in Israel and the Eastern Mediterranean. About 6,400 US troops, 1,500 Israeli soldiers, and over 140 aircraft were involved. These drills were seen as a message to Iran. The day after the drills ended, Iran was attacked by drones. Explosions and fires were reported in multiple locations in the country. Iran had said the drone attacks did not cause significant damage, but it has held Israel responsible. It's after the attacks that Iran revealed a new Air Force base and showcased its on-the-nose missile message. The choice of Isfahan for the exhibition was significant. It was the city that was attacked. Drones targeted a defense manufacturing facility. While the attack was attributed to Israel, Israel's policy is not to comment on any such allegations. Iran's missile display comes a day after Iran announced its first underground Air Force base. The Eagle 44 base is built on one of Iran's mountains. The exact location hasn't been made public. Iran's state news agencies showed tunnels housing fighter jets. These include US-built F-4E Phantom II fighters, jets Iran had acquired before the 1979 Islamic Revolution, and Soviet-era Sukhoi Su-24 Fencer bombers. These jets were outfitted with Iran's latest long-range cruise missiles. Iran's Armed Forces Chief of Staff, Major General Mohammad Bagheri, gave a warning. He said, "Any attack on Iran from our enemies, including Israel, will see a response from our many Air Force bases, including Eagle 44. Iran's aircraft squadrons may be aging, but they are secure. The location would mean they can survive bunker-buster attacks. They should be safe from drone sabotage missions as well. During a war, Iran can wait out initial assaults in its mountain base and then launch counterattacks across the region. But why would Iran reveal this Air Force base? Isn't it better to keep it a secret? Well, knowledge of the base's existence acts as a deterrent. It's something else for Israel and the US to think about if they're considering an all-out war.
We've been telling you about the Chinese spy balloon, a seemingly innocuous balloon that was hovering over American skies. Washington says Beijing used it to collect sensitive data. The spy balloon was then shot down, but the saga exposed China's extensive surveillance program. Turns out there's more. How? Through CCTV cameras. You may call it another weapon in Beijing's surveillance inventory. And Australia has now vowed to act. It is removing Chinese-made CCTV cameras from key locations. Canberra says these cameras are a security threat. How many devices are we talking about? More than 900. More than 900 cameras, intercoms, video recorders and electronic entry systems, all made by Chinese companies. These are said to have been installed in more than 200 Australian government buildings.
An audit I launched 6 months ago has today finally revealed almost 1,000 devices provided by Chinese government-linked entities, Hikvision and Dua. They're all throughout the Commonwealth, including our Department of Defence, our Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, our Department of Home Affairs, our Attorney General's Department. And I'm calling on the Albanese government today to outline a plan to get rid of them and get rid of them all.
The Albanese government took notice of this. It says that while the matter is serious, there is no need to overreact. Listen to this.
It's important that this has been brought to our attention. We're doing an assessment within Defence as to where those cameras exist, and when we've gone through that process, we'll obviously remove those questions. I don't think we should overreact to this, but it's important that it's been brought to our attention. It's prudent that we do the assessment, and we're going to act on it.
Prime Minister Anthony Albanese maintained that these wouldn't affect ties with China. Australia's diplomatic ties with Beijing is a story for another day. Tonight, we want to focus on these Chinese equipments. For starters, which are these Chinese companies? Mainly two, Hikvision and Dahua. And these two companies have manufactured devices not just for Australia, but for the rest of the world too, including India. Why are they problematic? And what's the matter with their surveillance devices? It's their ownership. Both companies are partly owned by the Chinese Communist Party. Connect the dots. Effectively, the CCP has direct access to loads of data and recordings from CCTVs, intercoms and other devices. From government buildings to the streets, the CCP may well be watching. And Australia is not the first to wake up to this threat. The United States and the United Kingdom did the same last year. They said they did not trust Chinese companies, so they removed the cameras. And none of this is an exaggerated response. China's growing surveillance technology is a well-documented fact. Researchers have found plenty and more evidence to show China's aggressive push in this space. Experts say these companies are at the mercy of the CCP. Some even say that Beijing is investing money to build such technology, and they're practicing it at home. Look at the findings of this study. 8 out of the world's 10 most surveilled cities are in China. Chongqing tops the list. This city is covered with 2.58 million cameras. How many people live there? 15 million. So effectively, they have one camera for every 6 residents. And these are well-equipped machines, high-resolution cameras that can reportedly scan faces in real time. Not surprising why China is called the surveillance state. It's bad enough that they do this at home. And now they want to keep an eye on the rest of the world too. This has security implications. How big is the Chinese network of cameras? Well, we have some estimates. China has exported its surveillance technology to at least 54 countries. Many of them have inked deals with Chinese companies to enhance their internal security. Chinese companies say they're not influenced by the government, but that argument has few takers. So where does all of this leave India? I ask because India imports most of its CCTVs from China. We use the same equipments in our homes, buildings, even streets. Also from the same companies that the Australians are wary about, Hikvision. It leads the CCTV market in India. It is said to have more than 35% of the market share. Let me rephrase that. A Chinese company, partly owned by the Communist Party, owns 35% of the CCTV market share in India. So is our data safe? Are we being watched too? And is the government investigating how damaging all of this can be? We don't have the answers yet. But China's notorious record does not give us much reason to be optimistic. Let's talk about the Arab world now. The Arabs aren't just the oil behemoths of the world anymore. They're diversifying and diversifying fast. From holding FIFA World Cups to owning football clubs, Arab nations are doing it all. Arabs own at least 5 major football clubs now. But why the sudden push in the realm of sports, particularly in football? Our next report tells you. Football is a game that excites the nerves. It's one that can change in the last 30 seconds of a match. It's a sport that has fans across the world. Ordinary viewers like us watch the game to enjoy it. But not all viewers think that way. When an Arab sheikh watches a football match, he probably wants to buy one of the teams playing. This might sound outlandish, but believe me, it's not. Arabs are buying football clubs like we shop for groceries. Qatar hosted the FIFA World Cup last year. It became the first country to do so. And that tells you something. It symbolizes the growing shift of football to West Asia, to the Arab world. Qatar has become the centerpiece of the Arab world's football puzzle. It already owns Paris Saint-Germain, but Qatar wants more. It plans to buy more clubs. It owns football clubs through QSI. QSI stands for Qatar Sports Investment. That's right, Qatar has a shareholding organization dedicated solely to sports. The QSI is in turn controlled by the Qatar Investment Authority, and the Qatar Investment Authority is the Arab nation's sovereign wealth fund. Qatar is in talks with many clubs. The goal is to buy them. We're talking about clubs like Manchester United, Liverpool FC, and Tottenham Hotspur. Big names in the football world, Qatar is looking to buy at least one of them, and Manchester United is its preferred choice. Reports say Qatari investors will quote-unquote imminently bid for Manchester United, and the push is coming from the top. This man is the Emir of Qatar, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, and he's willing to spend $4.5 billion to buy Manchester United. The Saudis too are in the thick of football. Saudi Arabia owns Newcastle United. Before the Saudi takeover, the club was one of the worst performing teams in the English Premier League. But then the tables turned. Newcastle went on to become the richest football club in the world, and it's not alone. The Saudis also own Sheffield United. Saudi Arabia's Abdullah bin Mossad Al Saud is the man who controls the club. There are reports that Nigerian billionaire Dozie Mobusi is looking to buy the club, but as of now, they remain reports. Manchester City is a major football club. It is owned by the United Arab Emirates' Sheikh Mansour. Then there's the Aston Villa Football Club, owned by Egypt's Nasser Sawiris. What are the Arabs doing controlling so many football clubs? Let's break this down for you. First, the Arabs have a lot of money. And when I say a lot, I mean a lot. It's no biggie for them to buy football clubs. And the benefits are many. Consider it an investment which puts their country on the world map. Oil won't always be the sensation it is right now. The world is moving in that direction. What happens when oil isn't the driver of global energy markets? The scenes won't be pretty for the Arab world. So Arab kingdoms are preparing for a post-oil world. The European football scene is a gold mine for those having the capital to invest in it. The value of the 32 most prominent European soccer clubs increased by 9% in 2019. What about revenues? They increased by 65% in just 8 years. The economic benefits are many, but there's a social angle as well. Controlling football clubs makes you part of an elite clique, and it helps the image of the country that you represent. Arab kingdoms have a lot of money, but many of them suffer from an image crisis. So they're making a major football push, trying to sports wash their country's image. What's sports washing? It's when countries use sports as a tool to improve their reputation. When Saudi Arabia took over Newcastle, thousands of the club's fans celebrated by waving the Saudi flag and donning Saudi attire. The takeover of football clubs is also a way for wealthy Arabs to park their money. But this is part of a larger strategic, economic and social plan, one that doesn't have oil at its center. Mass layoffs are sweeping big corporations. We've talked about this before. Some company or the other is making headlines every week. Meta, Microsoft, Alphabet. These are just some of the examples. But big tech is not the only target. The US media is facing massive job cuts too. Not to mention, it's happening amid economic gloom. And this period of media industry turmoil has claimed its latest victim, Disney, the world's largest entertainment company. Disney has made a serious announcement. Disney will cut 7,000 jobs from its global workforce. That's about 3% of its total staff, raising the question, is this the end of the streaming boom? Why is Disney letting go of 7,000 people? The company's CEO, Bob Iger, spoke about this. I do not make this decision lightly, he said. Well, we hope that is the case because this is surely a big decision. The biggest one yet since he returned as CEO in November last year. Positive changes have been seen after he retook the reins. Disney's revenue in the last quarter rose by 8%. Profits exceeded Wall Street expectations. The company's streaming division saw an improvement. Losses were down by $400 million. Then why the job cuts? Because Iger plans to attain sustained growth. Disney wants to streamline operations. It is cutting costs, $5.5 billion to be precise. That is the plan. And this explains the depressing announcement of layoffs. Disney is also scaling down its content operations. That will be another $3 billion in cost savings. What are content operations? For Disney, this means movies and television shows. They've been losing subscribers. In the last quarter, Disney lost about 2.4 million subscribers worldwide. And India contributed in a big way. The low-priced Disney Plus version in India saw a decline. But this story is not unique to Disney. Streaming services are struggling everywhere, it seems. Again, raising the question, has the streaming revolution peaked? Here is a clue. The pandemic and the lockdowns fueled an entertainment boom. People had more time. They wanted a distraction. So streaming services made big money. They saw record-breaking growth. Netflix added a record 37 million subscribers in 2020. Newcomer Disney Plus hit 100 million in 16 months. Do you know how long Netflix took to reach 100 million? A decade. Disney Plus did it in 16 months. But now the pandemic has ended and the streaming market is facing the perfect storm. Slower growth, more competition, and an audience returning to office. Binge watching has become a weekend affair again for most people. I'm sure you know what binge watching is. Watching content for a long time, binging on it. Usually an entire TV show in a single sitting. Sounds bizarre, but a lot of us were happily doing it, locked down in our homes. That was then. How much time do we make for TV now? If you dislike returning to your office desk, remember your streaming service dislikes it too. And that's just one reason for declining viewership. The other is money, stretched household budgets. Providers understand that not all customers are financially equal. India is a classic example of this. Its market potential is huge, but customers are not able or not willing to pay much for these services. It makes the price competition fierce. Maybe the new golden age of TV is proving to be too much of a good thing. With streaming fatigue and lack of time, viewers have grown increasingly selective, not only for what they pay for, but also for what they manage. So for those of you watching this show, we say, well done. You're being wise with your time. And now it's time to wrap up with Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. When was the last time you went for a run? Well, here's some inspiration for you to go running tomorrow. A German athlete ran about 60 kilometers a day for 3 months, 6-0. He ran through deserts, beaches, rainforests and snowy mountains, covering over 5,000 kilometers. Goes on to show what a human body is capable of achieving. Valentine's Day is around the corner, and guess who is getting ready to make a killing? The flower growers of Colombia. They export their blooms to more than 100 countries. In Turkey, meanwhile, Strawberry the cat was rescued from under the rubble. She was found shivering, but is now said to be in good hands. And finally, you must have heard of pet-friendly cafes. In Costa Rica, there's a human-friendly cafe. It caters to 4-legged customers, and humans are free to tag along. We're leaving you with these images. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
Çilek. Çilek ismi onun. Çilek. Gel buraya. Gel burada tamam. Gel. Çilek merhaba. Tamam titriyor ya.
Ah, ¿sí le gustó?
Hello and welcome to the late night edition with me, Ayushman Singh Jamwal. Breaking news coming in from Dausa in Rajasthan. And ahead of the Prime Minister's visit on the 12th of February, 1,000 kilograms of explosives have been recovered by the local police. Dausa resident Rajesh Meena has been arrested with these explosives. Now 65 detonators, 360 explosive pellets and 13 connecting wires have been recovered by the police. The police are interrogating the suspect to figure out